Ah! I was gonna say I put that tinfoil up there because I'm a conspiracy theorist, and anybody that comes in this house, which is not too often, besides direct, family, um, I want them to know that I wear a tinfoil hat at all times. See the tinfoil up there? That means the whole world is lying. It's everything you know is a lie that you've been taught, that we've been taught. No, I'm kind of kidding there. It's it was to block out some annoying glare from the sun, but um, I haven't really cared about it afterwards. I like if I want to get some brightness in here, the three windows work just fine. I don't need the top one really. I've said many times I like to make, if I can, 15 minutes or something like that, or within a half hour. So I'm gonna maybe try to do that. But um, you could read a verse or verses or hear things 1,000 times for 1,000 years, and then one day you just realize what it actually means, and you wake up to that one thing. One of those could be is that you're a set apart temple. That's where he dwells. It's supposed to be. It's too bad some of these words have some kind of pagan mixed in with them. I have to do more research on more of the minor words like glory and holy because they have a good ring to them, don't they? And so does Lord. I mean, you know, Jesus Christ, my Lord, our Master, full of glory, and they all they have a good ring to it, don't they? Just too bad that most of them are pagan. Um, so that's one of the verses. People don't actually realize something at a deeper level. It's just words. They recognize the verses, that their own body, even the physical body, and within and without, is a set apart temple. Now, do you think someone that's our creator, who's perfect, whose brightness, esteem, what's a replacement for glory? Power? Not really. You know, um, that we would just die instantly is going to dwell within you if you're a sinner continuously. Even if we're not perfect, we should at least admit the truth and not teach lies, um, for the sake of being comfortable with our own doctrines and traditions. Something that I've become more aware of, I think, is, you know, trying to see what's going on in the New Testament writings. What's going on there? What's being attacked? What's not being attacked? Replace, what's the verse? One of them is don't judge anyone for a set apart day, a festival, those days. He, where is the setting? Where's the setting? Who is he talking to? Usually, at least some Jews. And I don't know if that was in Jerusalem, especially if it's around Jerusalem. Jews, Hebrews, and maybe some Gentiles in around Jerusalem. Um, People that are aware of their history, the covenants, oracles, the law, Torah, he's telling he's telling new believers in Messiah, don't let pagans judge you for your new moon days, for your feast days, for your Sabbaths, plural, for your set apart days. Maybe that'll help you start to see the New Testament in a new light, all of the writings in general. Just do that every now and then, get the context right. Don't let any pagans do that. I know it doesn't say that, but trying to get the context, the meaning of what's actually going on, not speaking to a bunch of unbelieving Gentiles, a bunch of pagans, saying don't let believers or anyone in the world judge you about new moon days, as in these days are all vanished. They have no meaning and value and they're gone. Maybe that'll help you understand the New Testament writings, especially Paul's writings, a little better by just doing that, adding like a word like I just did. Don't let any pagans judge you on these days. They got their own festivals and satanic man-made traditions and days. If the Father has his days, well, then the world has their own holy days. It's a counterfeit. He's telling Hebrews, believers that were starting to believe in the Messiah, look, what you do is not going to be like everyone else. Don't let anyone judge you. He's not talking about breaking it. Once you see how crazy this is, once you see Paul never taught and went around breaking commandments and special days and taught that, you'll see how crazy this is. You'll see how crazy it is. Insane, heresy, blasphemy that Paul taught the opposite. That's what is 180 from our Creator's truth. What is 180? The devil's truth. You can't get more backwards or 180. That is of the devil. Once you see that, you'll see how evil it is. If the truth is, so bear with me if you don't believe these things, if the truth is like what I just said, don't let others, unbelievers and doubters and fake believers, judge you. Don't let them say it's no longer gone. Oh, that's crazy. It doesn't matter. We got our own days, blah, blah, blah. Don't let them judge you on your days. Interesting how the new moon days are mentioned in the New Testament, isn't it? Interesting, right? How do you have a new moon day on the solar pagan calendar? You don't, ever. There's no room in the 7 repeating days. Something that I can see a lot more clearly now. And if it is the truth, then the more you dig and search and ask for truth, you'll see the same thing. We won't see different things constantly, especially on major things. Should be pretty like-minded in the major teachings. And his special days are one of them. Israel. There's a couple verses I know of in Hosea and Jeremiah that the Father himself, because of breaking commandments, breaking laws, not believing in him, going away the way of the Gentiles, the King James has it heathens. Gentiles, I guess, would be more accurate technically, but a lot of times they put heathen. The way of the heathens, the Gentiles, the nations, the pagans. Because they did that over and over again, you could read about them. And he scattered them, and ultimately the destruction came. The dispersion went even further. They were already separated, the tribes, and then it just got obliterated. And then they went into slavery. And there's people I was battling, made 3 long comments, I think it was 3, on something I just stumbled. I wasn't looking for it. on YouTube teaching all things fulfilled, literally everything. Resurrection, second coming, the full preterist damnable heresy, which can trap and confuse people that don't know their scripture, don't know the truth, don't know how to explain things. That all things revelation was fulfilled in 70 AD. No, it wasn't. It was fulfilled. It's being fulfilled, and it will be fulfilled to come. That's the truth. Yeah, it was fulfilled. It's being fulfilled. 500 years ago it was being fulfilled. It's being fulfilled now, and it's going to be fulfilled in the future. The was, is to come. Truth. There would be no harlot if Jerusalem fulfilled the destruction in 70 AD, fulfilled it all in totalness, completeness. There would be no harlot, mother of harlots. That didn't even start to become fulfilled in more of the fullness of that prophecy until like the 1400s AD, 1500s. Protestants coming out of the Catholic church system, right, which was a step in the right direction, and they did get angry, and the devil had to come up with a new device, new tactics. And some of these people are aware of it, but they don't go deep enough. They're either ignorant or willfully ignorant on the history. They stop at a certain point. They say that the church was killing them throughout that dark ages. The Protestants, they were killing them. They're evil. We found the harlot. It's partly true. No, they weren't. They were killing true believers, not Protestants. Protestants would have hardly had anything against them. I suppose they do. Like I said, there was a step in the right direction with some of these things. Mary worship, I guess, and idol worship, but is all the idol worship gone? No. What about all the doctrines? It's carried over, most of them carried over from the Catholic Church system. So it was a rather weak Reformation, I guess. I mean, it was some kind of Reformation, but they think that's the fullness. That's it. 7-second prayer, join one of 30,000 denomination Protestant buildings, of which they are divided within themselves, and you have it. You have salvation. You're doing righteous. You're righteous now. There's no such thing as righteous without the proper foundation. Righteousness is not breaking commandments and laws. That's the only definition of righteousness. They don't have that in any of the denominations. They're not going to do a sermon and say this is righteousness, keeping commandments and keeping his laws. So their foundation is not good or foundational or goes back all the way to the beginning, the truth. It's not. It's not true. They don't go all the way. They came out of that line and are still connected in many ways to the mother church, They came out of that. They're the children of the harlot. And it's the doctrines that I hate, not them. I'm exposing the teachings so that people can come out of there. It's nothing to do with some kind of personal vendetta or whatever, hatred towards people. That would be against the truth. Love your neighbor, love your enemy, of which they mention sometimes, but then the Father is going to hate his enemies for everlastingly into the future and beyond and forever. These are pretty harsh, contradicting, confusing doctrines that, the people that it's meant to trap and bring in and convert, it will, but it doesn't bring them to life. Especially non-believers. They're aware of some of these contradicting teachings. and they shut out, just like the Messiah said, they shut out the kingdom of the Father from people, and they keep people from entering because of their tradition. So Messiah came not to abolish or destroy the commandments. Then with total absurdity and silliness, they say, well, he fulfilled it, aka destroyed it. Once he fulfilled it, it's destroyed. There's no other way around it. That's what they're saying. Fulfilled means destroyed. Prove otherwise. Prove otherwise. Well, he fulfilled it, so we don't have to. Well, it's destroyed. It's gone. So here's how that text would read then. Don't even think for a second. Don't even think with your deceitful heart, because the heart is deceitful above what? All? Name something deceitful. Our hearts are more deceitful. How many people have that in mind and understand that daily, that their hearts are deceitful? No, it's not. I have the truth. My pastor has the truth, and I'm of the truth. Okay? Right? There's no such thing as your heart being deceitful or anybody else's. There's nothing to watch out for. There is no deception or wolves. There's no snakes that would come in secretly and bring in destructive heresies, or King James special damnable heresies. There's nothing to watch out for. Don't be deceived is one of the first thing he told his disciples in that list of end times, end of the age, which did happen. There was a destruction. There was a destruction, and it was a type of an end of the age, and there's also going to be an end of this age. It's going to go something very like the end of that age, but it's going to be more grand, worldwide destruction, not just Jerusalem and surrounding Jerusalem. That's what people don't put together and understand. People who say the resurrection already happened, and the only answer to that is that it was a type and it's ongoing. This Jacob's trouble is sort of ongoing for his people until they repent, like its scriptures say, until they repent and turn back with all their heart, with all their soul, all their strength, and keep his way, keep his commandments. Then he's going to come. Then he's going to come. And I see that happening. And a lot of people that seem to be of the truth are saying the same things. That, time is short, time's running out. So once the body starts saying the same things, it's a good sign that it's probably true. It's not just Christianity. It's people who are seeking the truth. They don't believe it was nailed to a cross and stuff like this. They're starting to say that there's not a whole lot of time left, which all of us would be deceived if that damnable doctrine, full preterism, was true. Not only is it not close, it never ends. It goes like this forever. It blows the mind. It blows the mind that the amount of contradictions you could come up with if you carefully did a study on that. Sin would last forever. Atoning for sin would last forever. Death would last forever because the wages of sin are death. But they are forced to say there is no sin. He did it all. So preach the good news. What's their gospel? Oh, the Messiah took away all sin. There is no sin. There is no sin in the world. He took it all away. So there's no difference between a sinner or someone righteous. There would be no such thing. There's no such thing as life or death because there's no sin. So do whatever you want. It makes no difference. You be a full-blown sinner or don't be. No difference. That's their gospel. That's their good news. encourages people to sin. You could see the fruit of it. It comes from the devil. Doesn't want, doesn't chastise or correct or have any reason to be righteous. If sin is gone, well, screw it, man. I'm just gonna live in the flesh and please my body while I can. YOLO. That's the fruit of full preterism. It's damnable heresy. So I stumbled on that, and I wished I didn't even want to. But since I did, I had to make a few long comments because these people know how to use the scriptures in a snakish way, man. Most Christians can't refute it. They can't refute it because a false thing can't really correct or rebuke false. You know, you kind of need to be of the truth to be able to rebuke it. You need to understand, at least to some degree, some prophecy so you can catch them in their deceit. And I believe I did that, but most of these people are so hard, they're not going to change. You know, it's too big to say, oh, preterism, the whole doctrine is wrong. That's a pretty major thing to be wrong at. So it's, you know, pride is going to keep most of them from repenting, from spreading that nasty lie. And this is true for all things, all truths, all ministers. You know, it's too great of a fall to admit you are a giant, huge liar and told people to live in unrighteousness, basically, by nailing the commandments to the cross, of which I fully don't believe is a T-shaped pagan cross. That's Constantine. He created Christianity. That's what they don't get. They suppressed and killed the truth and buried it and tried their best to hide it. That's what I've been led to see. If you dig hard enough, you'll see the evidence for it. You'll see that there were believers up to the 300s still keeping the true way, or at least some of them were. And you'll see evidence if you dig hard enough that they were keeping the special days and feast days and Sabbath, which is not based on any man-made calendar. It's based on the lunar. You'll find evidence for that. They buried it. You'll find the 8-day calendar problem. You'll find Saturday was the first day of the week, and then they changed it to Sunday. So this whole idea that he died on Friday, resurrected on Sunday, is just based on a giant lie that they covered up. None of it's true. You know, it doesn't matter what day he died on the pagan calendar because it's pagan and has nothing to do with the heavenly calendar, which is based on the heavenly cycles of the sun, moon, and stars. It gets the season in its season right, but it's the day of the month that actually matters, starting with a new month, which is based on not the calendar. You don't need a paper calendar. You just need to understand how it works, and then nobody needs a calendar. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not that it's not helpful to have a calendar, but if you grew up learning these things, you would be able to do it just by looking outside at night. You would know what time it is, you know. You would. We weren't taught this though. They suppressed and killed it and buried it. So nobody needs to make a man-made thing. All around the world, it's the same day, same time, same month. The heavens declare it, not some man, not some pagan man, not the Pope. You know, they worship the Pope Gregory, the Gregorian calendar. What on earth does the Pope have to do with the truth? Even most Christians know that the Catholic system is a lie, that there are the Jesuits, you know, the Jesuits and the whoever else, the Knights. They go in and send people to spread lies. The thing they don't know and understand is they got them in their own church building. They got them in their own church building. That's what they don't understand. They're laughing their butts off. People who think they're exposing lies. It's a whole layer deeper than what they see it as, you know. When they expose the church system, they don't really do anything. Ultimately, it's just going from one deception to another, whether it's a little bit of a lighter deception or heavier. It's still deception. It doesn't matter. Who cares? You got paid Jesuits and other people that create whole entire denominations. Yes, they do. That's how the devil works. They're paid to do that, and they do it all their life, and they love it. They love the fame, the money. They don't care about the sheep, just like the Messiah said, just like Yahushua said. They're hirelings. They're hired to deceive and kill and destroy and keep you from the kingdom, keep you from life, keep you from the truth. They don't understand most denominations are full of that. And it's too hard for them to believe. My pastor seems nice. He's not a deceiver. Yeah, they are. I think most of them are willful deceivers. I don't think you get into that position and you're not a willful deceiver, but that's just my thoughts, my opinion. Someone will say most of them might be genuinely deceived and they're not willfully deceiving. I'm not sure about that, because that might be true right now, but the way deception works is he blinds a willful deceiver so that eventually they believe their own lies, and there's nothing they can do about it. It's just the truth, facts. He will blind you until you believe your own lies. So yeah, they're genuine now. They were all willful deceivers if they're still not. And now they believe their lies. They believe they're good people. They believe they're good for the community, and they're, they believe their own lies. If this wasn't true, it wouldn't even be deceptive. There would be nothing to watch out for. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. Beware of the doctrine. Yeast grows. Sin grows. Beware of that doctrine of the Pharisees. What do you mean? Just join a church building. Go to church on Sunday, on the Sunday, pagan Sunday, and worship the sun god, sun deity. But no, we believe in the God of the Bible, the deity of the Bible. Well, they say that. It wouldn't be deceiving if they didn't say that, would it? Nothing would be deceiving in this world if those things didn't exist. So for most people, I think it's more deceiving than most people think. This world in general, religions and all this stuff is more deceitful than, because if you don't have any kind of special discernment that comes from above, you can see, what I'm saying, test the spirits. You can see these things with your spiritual eyes, that they're hirelings, and they're in there to spread lies. Like I said, if they were willful deceivers, now they probably all believe their own lies. I mean, they get blinded. There's a penalty for that. So it's probably true that most of them are genuine deceivers. They believe in themselves. It's probably true. But that's the only path you can end up in if you're one of those people, that teach lies every day or every Sunday. Every Sunday they blaspheme his name by calling him false names. Every Sunday they blaspheme his name by teaching blasphemous doctrines. Every day they deny their Messiah and who he is and what the Father did with their Trinitarian doctrines, which is totally 100% pagan. But it's not a big deal to them. It's no big deal, because their conscience is seared with a hot iron. That's why it's not a big deal. Try to bring up the Trinity issue and say that's a false deity. What are you talking about? It's the God of the Bible. We're not deceivers. You are. That's how it goes. And then you got the majority rules kind of thing. They look around and, yeah, this is our tradition going all the way back to the beginning. You're the heretic that believes in one Father, one Creator. What a heretic, who believes in one Elohim, of which the scriptures teach over and over again. And that's one thing I want to mention is forget the New Testament altogether. If you can't get the doctrine from the Old Testament scriptures, then it doesn't exist, period. The only reason the New Testament scriptures exist is because of the all the doctrines and prophecies and everything from the Old Testament scriptures. So that's one way to test some kind of truth. Show me where it is in the Old Testament. Show me. They can't. So what they do is say the revelation, they make something up completely. The revelation was growing. They didn't know who he was. Now they know he's three persons in the New Testament because of Messiah. All this time, for 1,500 years, and all the saints before Israel existed as a nation, were wrong and deceived about the Creator. All this time there was three in one, one in three, all this nonsense. Egg. He's an egg. He's like an egg, you know. Comparing the Creator to an egg, it's shameful. Yolk, white, and the shell, or something like that. 3 in 1, see? I guess if you break the egg, three people come out of it. I don't know. It's insane. And they're so hooked on this doctrine. They're possessed by it. They're attached to it. They defend it with tears. It's quite obvious to me the spiritual problem. They're consumed by devils. Otherwise, why would you be so attached to it? Why can't you let it go? Because to let it go is to let their life go. It's to destroy their soul. If this is off, if something this major is off about our foundation, well then what on earth isn't off? What on earth isn't a lie? That's why they can't let it go. Not because there's a lack of evidence. The evidence against the Trinity is overwhelming. But they can't let it go because of pride, that nasty pride. They never searched for truth or sought after it from the Father. A day in their life, never. Because if they did ask, the Father would show them and say, wow, that's a heresy, that's a blasphemy, and they'd run from it. But this doesn't happen to the people who stay in there, which means they never ask. They never ask for truth. So, if people want life, well then see where you might need some kind of correction, whether it's a heart problem or whatever. Because sin doesn't go unpunished, even though it's pretty apparent to me how much patience he has on everyone, sinners. The fact that nobody's just struck dead immediately, even the most greatest blasphemy. That man Constantine didn't, he still lived, and he created a pretty major blunder with all his doctrine and bringing in paganism with his church, and then it just grew from there. So his patience is more than anything we have. It would be a joke to compare anything that we have that's good, and whatever is good comes from above. So we just have a piece of it. We're not the Father, we're not the Creator, we're not the Messiah who's perfect, glorified. We won't have these things if we don't seek them out or ask for them. How could we? So that's one thing I find consistent with people that don't have a love for the truth. They don't ask for it. They see already. I've said that in other videos. That's the part of the judgment. Those who see are made blind, and those who are blind, they are made to see. And if the Pharisees, he told them, if they said that because they say they see, their sin remains. So, it's pretty. First time I ever came across that, it didn't make sense, but that was a while back. It's pretty apparent what that means. And it's all connected to pride. They say they see, they reject the truth constantly. And they will never let go of anything false, whether back then it would have been changing and twisting the commandments and everything, and creating their own oral law, which seems like is still going on in the Far East over there. I don't know what, it's a mess over there concerning what they do. It's all mixed up. The Talmud and all this other stuff. So he came to destroy and expose their traditions. And it's specifically that was placing a heavy yoke and burden on people, not the truth. That's what they don't teach that, and that's what I found out. They don't teach that in the most of the church world. They teach that the commandments are a heavy yoke and burden. Therefore, I guess they're all gone, nailed to the cross, something like that. So now we're free. Kind of the liberty that this country has, they teach that kind of liberty almost, in a way, or even if it's not direct, it's implying it. Liberty kind of towards sin. That's not what Paul ever taught. It's not the liberty that he taught. It's pretty obvious he didn't teach that. Just one or two verses to totally throw that in the garbage, because of this favor, grace, for both Jew and Gentile. So what now? So now we sin? By no means. By no means. Not only that, but we establish the law. That's what he said. If it was gone, disappeared, he wouldn't have said any such thing. And many other verses, that seem to be ignored or never taught. Like they don't do sermons on certain verses from Paul. They won't expound or do any kind of sermon on that, for example. What on earth is establishing the law? How do you establish something that doesn't exist? It would be that's dumb. You can't. And people think it's like I don't know, something horrible, heavy yoke burden. Like there's 20,000 things I need to change in my life. It's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. But, and if you read the scriptures, you'll find that all the true believers, it was their delight to do what's right. Just show me what's right. That's all. Show me what's right. And it was their delight because it's a light. He's a light to those that follow the Messiah, that do what's right. He teaches you to do what's right, and that gives life, not willfully, breaking things on purpose, or I guess many it's ignorantly, but then at some point in their life it becomes willful ignorance. Psalm 119, Michael M. 119:45. I will walk at liberty, for I seek thy precepts. That would be kind of I think that would be a contradiction to the standard teaching, because the liberty is something other than walking in the precepts. So yeah, thanks for the verse. I think that helped prove the point, that this liberty is not to be in lawlessness. And the closer you get to the Father, the more we don't hate them, but that their teachings are, gross. They start becoming disgusting. Like, man, how could you say such a thing, and that's what I find myself saying, like, how on earth can someone, but the way that he set up this all of life is that we were that first, or some kind of form of that first. So, if you remember that, then it'll help you stay humble, not to get stupid about it, prideful. And I think that's a great example. Saul, and I don't know, I'm still learning some of these Hebrew names. That's going to take a little while to try to get them all right. But before he was Paul, he was zealous, and I believe what he said. I believe he was It sounds to me from reading it, he was keeping the law and zealous for it. And now maybe he was doing some other things or traditions too, but he was zealous but his heart was all messed up. And I think people don't understand what's going on with a lot of Paul's writings. They think Messiah, I don't know how do they say it? Messiah replaced all that, so all of it's garbage. It's not what's going on. He considers all the world and all the traditions and all the everything else he considers as trash compared to Messiah. And obviously, he would have been a perfect example of the conversion of his heart, because he was a brutal, violent, from what I can see, against the body, against the assembly, maybe even directly killing, but maybe it was just giving orders. I'm not sure. That's pretty nasty, man. Killing people, like especially people that are believers in Messiah. So he would know as good as anyone. He calls himself the chief of sinners, totally unworthy, but he did a lot of work, and he claims that he did more than the others, or most of them, I think, and suffered a lot for it too. And I'm still learning and seeing some of these writings and trying to see them the proper way, whatever the truth is, in a different light. And I'm starting to see some of them, and it's pretty nice to see, because it's radically different than what was taught. And then when I first started reading, I thought, oh yeah, that's what they're saying is true. You're so blinded, you don't even think about what you're implying. Once I started to see how crazy it is, even admitting still that, yeah, there's a few tougher verses. That's why people twist them. But, overall, seeing how crazy it is to say that Paul went around teaching Messiah, but to break commandments and do all these things, which is what they ultimately teach that. That's what he did. They can't say it like that because it just sounds wrong. So they know that. They can't say, maybe some of them do, but I think most of them don't teach behind the pulpit and say Paul taught to break a bunch of stuff. That wouldn't sound too good, but that ultimately they imply it. So I'm rereading, some of these things and trying to, like other people have said, you can't have some kind of Western mindset about these things. You have to know who Paul is, where he came from, who the Jews were. All these things will help get the context right. And that's what looks like they do wrong, is they miss the context completely on some of these verses to teach what they teach. And I don't know why there's such a vicious attack against it. I've experienced nothing but good, but by wanting to do what's right, doing better, learning where I've experienced nothing but good. I don't know why anybody would want to, but I get it though, the traditions are stuck in their mind. And like I said earlier in the video, I think one of the big reasons is if you expose something that big and can prove it with scripture by carefully going line through line, that Paul did not teach what they say they did, everything crumbles. It's like a ripple effect. All their doctrines crumble and they expose themselves as false. That's why I think they hang on to that. They want to keep hanging on to the people that keep resisting it. That think about how major that would be to acknowledge that if there's no evidence in Paul's writings that this was all gone and done away with, then there's no evidence anywhere else. I don't think most of them will acknowledge in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. There's not a whole bunch they could use there to twist, I don't think, as much. and certainly not the Old Testament scriptures. It's nothing but examples of being punished for breaking these things. And that's one of the things I'm trying to understand too more on what exactly that curse that Paul talks about, that the curse side of it seems to be something changed. But I don't know if that was just if that applies to all of us or just the people who were originally under the old covenant, or the original people under that covenant were under the law, under that curse for breaking it, and there seems to be some kind of lifting of the curse or something like this, but I don't have a perfect understanding of it right now. But I know I could see enough where, he's not talking about the law itself being a curse, and that it's unrighteous or unjust and it was done away with because it was unrighteous. Nothing like that. I think I'm running out of words, but it's actually sad because Genesis through Malachi is basically, I don't think you could see it as any kind of truth or guide or authority with that standard teaching, like the verse Psalm 119:45. Yeah, but that was just for the people back then. I could see someone just doing that. They'd throw it away. Why on earth was all of this preserved for us? And why did Paul say that it was all for us, our benefit, our admonition, for learning, for doctrine, for reproof, for righteousness, all through faith? It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be if you could just say, and another verse that comes to mind, I don't know where it's at, those who turn away from the law, even their prayer is an abomination. Is that true, or is it not true? They would imply that it's not true. Those who turn away from wanting to do what's right, their prayer is not an abomination. He accepts them fully. That's what you'd have to say, which means that not only is that not true anymore, it's also kind of a lie. I suppose they wouldn't call it a lie because it used to be true. It's not true anymore. So really, they throw the whole entire 2/3 of or more than 2/3 really of the Bible as old. And I'm trying not to even call it Old Testament because it seems to do more damage than good by calling it Old Testament. It sounds like it's old and worthless and done away. The one thing that I was blinded to are the prophecies in the age to come. There's a few prophecies that are pretty clear. I think anybody could see it. You don't have to be super knowledgeable or whatever to understand that there's no answer for. Some of these things they say that's done away with. We shouldn't practice them anymore. Why on earth then are they going to be in the age to come? Sure doesn't make any sense that he pressed the skip button for 2,000 years and now he brought it back, I thought there's some other teachings from the church world that I unlearned, and I thought some of those were the major, but then I learned it was even worse than that. The major thing it seems like the enemy has really kept secret is the fact that his commandments didn't go away. That's the foundation. They took that away. And I've been reading some quotes supposedly from Constantine, assuming these are true quotes and everything. It's when you start connecting some of the history, starts becoming pretty clear what happened. He did away with everything on purpose, and we have writings from him supposedly that say do away with all their customs, all their traditions, all their set apart days, holy days, all their everything. He was disgusted with anything that had to do with Hebrew anything. So people need to know, people that don't know this truth, they need to know what happened around the 300s AD on this attack, on this separation. It wasn't way back during Paul's time. This hard hitting deception happened a little later. It was already happening, but it seems like Constantine was the main man that turned things around and buried it. And that's where some of the, I've seen documentaries of exposing the church, the Catholic Church, and the Protestants are the reformers, but they seem to miss a whole entire layer. They only go so far with the Catholic Church and no further, never. I don't know if all of them don't know or they just willfully stop, because once you see some of those things, I don't know how you can't see some of the other things that the the true worshipers, the true believers were not they weren't Protestants. They were true believers in the Messiah, and they were still holding on to truth, and they buried it. And they killed him. And it continued to happen, and then I guess that's why there's not a whole lot of history after that on true believers, but mostly church fathers from the Catholic Church and Protestants, because there wouldn't have been very many, and they would have been scattered, and they never had any say. Whatever say they had, they were defeated. Not ultimately defeated, spiritually, but as far as truth goes, they were shut up and done away with. And it was like that ever since. And then the calendar, the more you dig about the true calendar, you could see the same thing. But it's definitely a little buried, though. But there is evidence. Some people say it doesn't exist at all, but I found that to be untrue by people who still hold to the Gregorian calendar, as you could keep days on that calendar. I found some pretty major quotes and major evidence, assuming all these things are true quotes, that the true believers had nothing to do with the Julian calendar, and then much later, the Gregorian. But so it's unfortunate. Most people don't want to learn or hear anything about it. That's how it's been. The only people I know really are a few people online. So the body is like, for me, it's through the web, which is not a bad thing. But there's, I don't know anybody that goes to these buildings, and there's so many of them just in my small town. I don't know how many, I'd have to do a search, but there's like 4 just around within a mile or 2. Anybody that goes, I know they're deceived. I know that they got deception if they keep going there. So it's unfortunate that they're so stiff-necked about these things. It's too much at once to say that most of the doctrine and most of the history doesn't go back to the 1st century. It's too much. What else could I say? Yeah, I find the scriptures much more valuable and meaningful, without with the knowledge of not throwing away his commandments. That's what they're there for. And Paul even says, don't be like them in the desert, and if it was just what they teach was just like, I'll believe in the Messiah and, I got the doctrine in my head sort of kind of thing, then the warnings don't even make sense. Really, they don't. Be careful not to be like them. that got hardened in the desert and they all died. Don't be like them. Uh, it sure has a lot of meaning when you have the truth. It doesn't really have much meaning when you don't have the truth. You know, they don't have anything to do with them, and he's saying don't be like them. There's a connection. But they teach that and those are the people over there. They're Jews, and we're the church, of which I find, and I looked for. I don't see any prophecy of specifically what's called the only prophecy I see for the Roman Catholic Church and anything else is in Revelation, which is actually on the wrong side, the harlot. But besides that, I don't see any prophecies concerning the church age and commandments changed. I see all the opposite constantly. Prophecies of times and law changing, from the prophecy in Daniel. That wouldn't have been a prophecy if it wasn't extremely important. I don't know how people can't see that. Why prophesy of such a major thing that's going to happen? Warning people, prophecy, look, here it is. They're going to change times and law. If, it doesn't matter. I'm, like Martin Luther, I keep the Sabbath day every day in my heart, or something like that. It's pretty deceptive, which is pretty much what that was my understanding. Just that's how I kept it in my own mind for a while. If you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Yeah, I don't know what people think that means. I know what people that know the truth think it means and know it means, but it seems like there's a glazing over these big time verses. Their eyes are glazed. It just doesn't hit them with anything. And if you start bringing it up, then they have to back up their traditions. It's exactly like the Pharisees, exactly like what I read. They got angry like the Pharisees. They resisted it. Every time he questioned them, they would come back with they didn't have a genuine heart. They would try to answer in a way just constantly to trap him. I'm trying to think of the specific example. There's one I have in my mind. I'm not sure how to say it. He answered pretty good. It sounded good, and Yahushua said, "You're not far from the kingdom, or far from entering." He didn't say you're entering, but you're not far from entering. Then it says something like they dare not ask him anything else. You were like almost afraid of it. So it's interesting. Those verses have, spiritually some pretty powerful meaning, but you can't see that until you come to the truth and start receiving truth. What that means, you're not far from entering the kingdom, You're close, but not all the way right. There's still corruption in that heart somewhere. And he said they keep people and shut them out from the kingdom. That's what deceivers do, whether they know it or not. They do that. They shut people out from the kingdom. So there's scriptures that teach that, my understanding for a while has been that you sort of enter today in a way, you nothing foul can enter. So people don't understand. You can't be a full-blown sinner and enter the kingdom. And I know this is not just spiritual, there's a future for this kingdom, a future reigning and all that. But until then, the kingdom is within, and you can enter the kingdom. And entering the kingdom means that he's in you, working in you, and you can hear his voice. Not like, at least I've never heard audible sounds, but I don't know if anybody else has. But how do you explain it? You just know. You just know. That's it. You know he gave you a truth, or you know he's telling you to do something. And you're alive. You're not dead. You just know. And then when you make little mistakes, do something wrong, you kind of get separated, that grieving of the spirit. Like you start knowing what this is. But as long as you're in those buildings, I think they're dead the whole time. Maybe not counting the beginning, but then afterwards, they're shut out. They can't hear them. They don't have that life, so they have to rely on worldly wisdom, their own deceitful heart, and they have to rely on, I think, most of the time, since most people, if you don't have true rest, you have to, I don't know, you have to love something in this world, and you got to keep doing something. And I can see that kind of unrest in people. They don't have like I don't know, they're lacking like any kind of true peace, I think. Now I'm starting to think, so I think I better end it. And I'll read that one more time. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. John 14. It's not a hard, understanding. That's not too complicated. If you love me, keep my commandments. So, and another one that I can think of right now is, if you love me, then you'll keep my commandments, just as I have kept my Father's commandments. That's a pretty big one too. Very clear. So I think that's it. Michael and C. Lyra. All right. Peace and blessings in Yahuwah's name, not some false name. So, that's been very important to me, and it's made a difference to stop calling on the lords and gods and stuff. So, peace and take care.